also needs a fake wife for his brother's wedding. But he didn't expect to fall in love with her. He had it all, wealth, power, charm, but not a woman to walk beside him when the invitations arrived. The wedding was not his, yet the pressure on him felt heavier than the groom's. His younger brother, admired and adored, was getting married, and expectations circled like vultures. He had avoided emotional entanglements for years, burying himself in board meetings and billion-dollar deals. But now he needed a date. Not just any date, a woman who could convincingly pretend to be his wife. It was a stupid family tradition. Every heir must be seen settled before attending another's wedding. He laughed it off at first, but then the pressure from investors and family became real. His reputation, his family's honor, and his brother's wedding harmony were all tied to this one lie. He found her unexpectedly, in a place where smiles were forced and eyes screamed survival. She was smart, sharp-tongued, and struggling to make ends meet. She didn't belong in his world of glass towers and private jets, yet there was something in her silence, something aching, familiar. She said yes, but not without rules. It was a contract, clear, limited, cold. Pretend to be his wife. Smile for the cameras. Wear the ring. No touching. No emotions. No crossing lines. But hearts don't care about contracts. And neither did fate. The first day at the wedding venue was a disaster. His family was skeptical. Her smile was stiff. The guests whispered. He felt her hand tremble in his, but she held on. And slowly, as rehearsed touches turned into lingering glances, and forced smiles turned into uncontrollable laughter, he began to forget it was fake. She laughed like she'd forgotten pain for a moment. He smiled like he had found something he didn't know he'd been looking for. But behind those romantic dinners and perfect photos, there was tension. Every moment they stole felt borrowed. She looked stunning in every dress, but behind her beauty was a broken past she never spoke of. He tried to know her, but she built walls higher than his penthouse. Still, he began noticing things. How she flinched when someone mentioned betrayal, how she avoided mirrors like they haunted her, and how every time someone said, "forever," her smile faded. The night before the main wedding event, they found themselves alone on the balcony under the stars. Neither of them spoke, but the air pulsed between them. She leaned in slightly, and he felt the pull. Raw, dangerous, irresistible. But then she pulled away. Her eyes turned cold, voice clipped. "Don't make this real," she warned. "We both know what this is." But he didn't want to know. He wanted to believe. The wedding went on. They played their part so perfectly that even he started believing she was his. But with each perfect smile she gave, he felt a strange ache in his chest. He was falling. Yes. And she was pulling away, slower every day, but pulling still. Then it happened, the twist he didn't see coming. At the reception, in front of hundreds of guests, a man stormed in. A face from her past. A secret she'd buried deep. One that shattered every moment they'd shared. The man's words cracked the fragile illusion they had built. She stood frozen, tears threatening to spill. The CEO, for the first time in his life, didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to protect someone from a past she never told him about. The whispers around them grew louder. The perfect fake love story was crumbling. He followed. And under the moonlight, away from cameras and lies, she broke. She told him everything. How she had once trusted someone, how love had turned into pain, how she vowed never to fall again. He listened, not as a billionaire or a businessman, but as a man who now realized the fake marriage wasn't the only lie. They had both been lying to themselves. His heart raced. Everything felt real now, too real. And just when he reached out to hold her and tell her he wanted to turn the lie into truth, she whispered, "I can't do this." And she left. The wedding was over. The pictures were perfect. But his heart was in pieces. She had walked into his life for pretend, and walked out with something very real. But he wasn't done yet. Not when he knew the truth. Not when love, real love, was finally knocking. The house was full of people, music, celebration, but he felt hollow. His brother was married. The family was pleased. The guests had no idea that the perfect wife he had introduced was gone. She had disappeared from the venue, left nothing but a note on the hotel pillow. "Thank you for everything. But we both know fairy tales aren't real." He clenched the note in his hand like it could bring her back. But it didn't. He had fallen for someone who had made him feel alive again, only to realize he never truly knew her at all. Days passed. He went back to his office, back to cold rooms and sterile meetings. But his world had shifted. The things that used to matter, stock prices, contracts, mergers, felt weightless now. Her laughter haunted the walls. Her absence clawed at his chest. She had touched a part of him he didn't know existed. And he couldn't let it go. Not like this. He hired someone, not to track her, not to force anything, but to find out if she was okay. He didn't need to own her story. He just needed to know she was safe. What came back shook him. She hadn't just run, she had vanished. Her apartment was empty. Phone off. No online activity. It was like she had erased herself. But one thing stood out. Hospital bill from 2 years ago. A name he hadn't seen before. He drove to the hospital and pretended to be a family member. The receptionist was hesitant, but eventually gave in. And what he found out broke him. She had been pregnant. She had lost the baby. She had been admitted after being assaulted by someone close to her, a man who had claimed to love her. The same man who crashed the wedding reception. The same one who had shouted about lies and betrayal and dragged her past into the light. The CEO sat in his car for hours after that, staring at nothing. She hadn't left because she didn't care. She left because she was still bleeding inside. And he had walked into her life with a smile, asking her to pretend, not realizing how dangerous pretending could be for someone still learning how to breathe again. But now he knew. And he wasn't going to let her disappear again. It took him 3 more weeks to find her, living under a different name in a coastal town, working in a small bookstore by the sea. When he walked in, she didn't even look up. She didn't recognize him at first. He stood there, frozen, watching her tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, the way she always did when she was nervous. And then their eyes met. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She just stood still. He walked up slowly and placed the wedding ring on the counter between them. "I didn't come here to fix you," he said softly. "I came here because you fixed something in me, and now I can't go back to the man I was before you." She looked down at the ring, then back at him. "This was never real," she whispered. "Yes, it was," he replied. "Maybe not at first. But somewhere between the fake smiles and forced kisses, it became the most real thing I've ever felt." She shook her head, still holding on to her fear. "What if I break you the way I've been broken?" He stepped closer. "Then we'll break together. And rebuild from there." She reached for the ring, her hand trembling. "I'm scared." "So am I," he said, placing his hand over hers. "But love isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing each other even when we're terrified." For the first time she smiled. Not the perfect camera-ready smile, but a small, broken, beautiful one. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But something shifted. They started again, this time not as a billionaire and a hired actress, not as a man and his fake wife, but as 2 scarred souls trying to heal together. But just when it felt like the story would end in peace, the final twist came. Months later, as they were moving into a new apartment together, he received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a photo, blurry, grainy, taken from across the street. It was her, with the man from the wedding. Not fighting, not scared, but smiling. Behind the photo was a typed note. "Are you sure she didn't fake everything again? Think. She's good at pretending." His breath caught. Was she playing him? His fingers shook as he slipped the photo into a drawer, deciding not to confront her. Not yet. But now, something inside him whispered what he feared all along. What if the fake wife had played the longest con of all? Then. Or maybe. Just the beginning of another lie.